Hey everybody, I'm on early. Who's here? Who's here today? Who's the eager beaver that's in here early waiting to tie flies? Get all your materials ready now. I don't see anybody.
I'll put the recipe and pin it at the top.
Okay. All right. What did I say for the red part? What material did I say for the red part?
For
the throat.
The ice dubbing?
Yeah. Red ice dubbing? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't see anybody here. Oh, there's Greg. Greg's here. And so today we are going to tie a streamer fly. Oh, there we go. Ed's here. Brandon's here. Robin from downstairs. Hi, Robin. Why are you watching my Facebook Live, Robin? Why are you doing that? Don't you have something better to do? Robin is stalking me because we have to work out after this Facebook Live session. So she's waiting patiently for me so that she can torture me. So I'm not going to start talking about this fly yet because we've started early, but do we have any general questions? I hope everybody's doing well and had a good weekend and got outside, got some exercise, fresh air, ate healthy. Roger Bird doesn't have any school. Oh, he doesn't. No school today. So Roger Bird is home. Roger is probably home with Irma. And I wonder, is Irma watching today too, Roger? It's not your birthday, so she's probably not watching. Let's see, where are people from? Texas, and I know Florida, from Patagonia, Argentina, Grapevine, Texas, Northeast Ohio, Indiana, Southern California. Wow, looks like we got a lot of people on here today. Or a lot of people just feel like typing in the comment section today. Any tips for not freezing to death in the Northeast? I'm from California and we don't know what winter is. David, no. It's generally when you're fishing in the cold weather, I find personally with my biology or my physiology is that my legs and my body and my core can stay warm, and even my head and my ears, but fingers and toes are problematical for me. And the best thing for toes I have found is a heavy pair of wool socks, in which case you might have to buy a larger pair of wading boots, and those chemical toe warmers that you stick on your socks. They're the disposable chemical warmers, and then I'll put a couple of the hand warmers of the same type in my pockets. I don't like fishing with gloves, but I've found that when the wind is blowing, it makes it so much worse because your hands get wet. And what I try to do is, even if it's relatively cold, if the wind isn't blowing too hard, it's usually not that bad out there. Wear fleece pants with some. I like merino wool underwear, both for top and bottom, and then I'll layer over that with some. Well, I use the Orvis wading pants, which are awesome in cold weather. They have stirrups in the bottom so they don't ride up your ankles, and they're super comfortable. And I've never been cold in them. And then I'll wear a sweater and the Orvis Pro hoodie over the top of that. And my body is never cold, but fingers and toes are a problem for me anyways. And you probably have the same issue. So if anybody else has, a towel, Michael suggests a towel is a great thing. And I forgot one last time I was fishing. A towel a small hand towel just to dry your hands off after they get wet is a great idea. And I need to remember to pack a towel the next time. Greg says, bought the Orvis Guide Sling Pack. Love the sling pack, but it doesn't adjust down to a small enough side to fit comfortably. With the holidays here, I could just put on weight to make it fit. But do you have another idea? It's pretty adjustable, Greg. I'm surprised that it doesn't adjust down to a small enough size. It shouldn't be too tight. You want that thing, you want to be able to rotate that thing. It shouldn't be too tight. And you do have that side strap to keep it from falling over when you bend down to land a fish or whatever. But I've never heard of it being too small or too large anyway. And Bjorgafur, excuse me if I butcher your name, brisk walk every 30 minutes when the temp is close to freezing point. Layers. Wool is always great. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and walking. Yeah, don't stand in one place for too long. Keep moving. Get out and walk. That will warm you up great. And then Craig says, a big fan of wearing surgical gloves. Keep you dry and therefore warm. Yeah, I've heard of that, and I haven't tried that, but I've heard of that tip as well, just because it keeps your hands dry. Roger Bird wants to know what I suggest as a freshwater shrimp fly. What do you suggest for pond fishing for stockers? Well, pond fishing for stockers, Roger, anything that looks like a pellet. But, hatchery fish are typically pretty curious, and they're like, somebody said recently, hatchery fish are like a 2-year-old. They want to put everything in their mouth. They're curious, and they want to put everything in their mouth. So I don't think there's any special fly. My favorite freshwater shrimp imitation is an old Frank Sawyer fly called the killer bug. And basically, it's a certain kind of creamy tan, pinkish color of wool on a hook, on a weighted hook, and that's it. Look up the killer bug. It's people agonize over getting the exact right color of wool, and I don't think it matters that much. There are places that sell what they call killer bug wool. But the killer bug I found to be a more effective fly than the fancy, realistic looking shrimp imitations. I found it to be deadly, and it's very subtle, and it's very simple, and it sinks well. So try that killer bug. Okay, so it's the Tom and Julia show, and it's past 3 o'clock, so we're going to start talking about this fly now. So what we're tying today is BeadHead Flash Zonker, which is one of my favorite flies, particularly when I want something that's fairly slim, fairly light, that I can cast on a lighter rod, sinks well, and is a great imitation of a crippled baitfish. I've been doing a lot of fishing for landlocked Atlantic salmon this fall, because I can't go steelhead fishing because I can't travel, but I do have access to fall runs of some landlocked Atlantic salmon, which behave a lot like trout. This has been my go-to pattern. It's also been a go-to pattern for me for trout across the country. It's just, when the fish aren't taking those big articulated flies, it's amazing putting on a more subtle, slim streamer like this. Amazing the results you'll get. And also, I really like a white streamer if the fish are willing to take it, because you can see the fly in the water and you can watch it. You can see when a fish makes a pass at it, when it disappears. You're watching it and all of a sudden it disappears. You may not see the fish, but the fly disappears. Chances are a trout grabbed it. And so it's very visible. You can see the way your fly is swimming, and it's a very, very effective fly. And it's quite simple to tie as well, as you'll see. I like it in white, and I know somebody's going to ask me about different colors. And when I use white streamer or when I use particular color. And I don't use a lot of different colors of streamers. I do like to have dark ones and light ones. And my answer to when to fish a white streamer is when a black one doesn't work. I'll usually start with a black streamer with a woolly bugger or a zonker or something. And if black isn't producing, I'll try white. And white often, particularly on bright days, there's the old saying from Atlantic salmon fishing: bright day, bright fly; dark day, dark fly. And I do follow that rule, at least to start. You know, it gives you a place to start. And I think that there aren't that many. There aren't a ton of popular white streamers out there, but it is a very, very good pattern. It's pretty flashy. Questions on this fly before we start tying it? How do you fish it? You fish it like a streamer. Any damn way you please. You can strip it like crazy. You can strip it and let it pause. You can fish it dead drift like a crippled baitfish, particularly if you're fishing in a tailwater where sometimes when they're generating, baitfish get chopped up in the outflow of the dam. This is a great pattern. It's a great one to fish dead drift because that rabbit fur really moves and flows in the current and looks like a crippled baitfish. So it's also a great steelhead fly, by the way, particularly for Great Lakes steelhead. I'm not so sure about West Coast steelhead, but there are a lot of emerald shiners that are in the river at the same time as steelhead in the fall and in the spring. And these emerald shiners often die. I think they're spawning at that time of the year. And there's a lot of dead emerald shiners drifting down. And this white zonker of some type can be a very, very effective fly, either stripped or fished dead drift. All right. So rod weight and leader setup for smaller rods. I don't know, 6-weight, Phil. I usually, if I'm going just streamer fishing, I usually take the Helios 3 907. You can fish this fly on a 6. You can fish on a 5 because it does have that bead, fairly big tungsten bead on it. It gets a little clunky on a 4-weight, but it's a perfectly reasonable fly on a 5-weight. And I invariably tie this fly on a size 8 4X long hook. I don't tie them much bigger, and I typically don't tie them much smaller. It seems that if anything's going to work at all, a size 8 works pretty well. Whether you're fishing for steelhead or trout, or it's a great smallmouth fly. It's a great fly for crappie and yellow perch. Anything that will eat a baitfish will eat this fly. And it has a different action. Than something like a conehead muddler or a Clouser minnow. It doesn't bob and weave so much. It tends to plane a little bit straighter because that bead is placed a little further back, and with the rabbit fur wing, it tends to swim a little bit more minnow-like than that diving kind of crayfish-like action that you'd get from something like a Clouser minnow. So, all right. I don't see any questions. Specifically, hook size 8 4X long is what I'm going to use and what I typically use. Okay, so shall we tie? Let's go look at the materials. So the first thing.
Mark was asking about the history of this fly.
Oh, the history of this fly. Okay. This is, of course, the zonker is an old pattern, and I'm not so sure who developed the zonker, but it's been around for a long time. But this fly was originally called the light bright zonker, and it was developed by a good friend of mine named Bill Black, who used to own a company called Spirit River. It was a fly tying materials company. A lot of you probably heard of Spirit River, or probably still have some Spirit River materials in your fly tying area. Bill retired a couple years ago and sold the company to Bill Keogh and Hairline. And I think they still sell a few Spirit River materials. They're probably working off old inventory. But Bill developed this fly, and he originally made the body out of a material called Light Bright, which was kind of a flashy, iridescent material that was available both in dubbing and as a hair. And then we were calling it at Orvis. We were calling it the Light Bright Zonker, and then we stopped selling Light Bright. And Bill called me one day and asked me if we could stop calling it the Light Bright Zonker because we weren't selling Light Bright. So we stopped calling it the Light Bright Zonker, and it's now the BeadHead Flash Zonker. And now I tie it now with Hairline's ice dub. Ice dub is very, very similar to Light Bright. So ice dub makes a great material for this fly, for the body of the fly. Okay, so that's the history. All right, so what you need is you need a hook, and one of the most important things here is that when you buy zonker strips, they're crammed into a bag, and they're all bent and kind of kinked up, and it's hard to sometimes get a good piece to tie with. But there's a very easy solution. You just go and you take your strips and you steam them gently. Don't get them too close to the steam because you can singe that hair. But just take your strips and kind of stretch them over some steam, and then kind of what I do is kind of go with the grain and just kind of pull it over the steam like this, and then those strips will be nice and straight, and it makes them much easier to handle. So that's one of the first things to do. And then here's Light Bright, which is the body material. And then for the throat, I didn't have any red Light Bright, but I got this old red sparkly dubbing, which is very similar to Light Bright. You can use anything for the throat on this, anything red wool, or even red floss. You just want a little flash of red in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my size 8 4X long hooks. And I'm going to put a bead on it. And you can put whatever size you want, depending on how fast you want this to sink. I find this relationship to be about right. I'll show you the kind of the relationship between the hook and the bead, and we'll show you that when it gets in the vise. And then just find the small diameter end of the bead, slip it over your hook, and then put it in your vise. So we'll go and put that in the vise. Get that straight for you. Don't want that to, oh, that doesn't look straight. There, that's straight. Okay. So, got your hook in your vise, got your bead, which is still swinging free. And what I do is I back my bead out of the way and start the thread here. Just past the eye. And then this is just kind of a handy handy step to keep the bead out of the way. I'll take a loose turn around the bead just to hold it in place. This is not a real tying step, but I just take a couple turn. I just take a turn over the bead. And that thread is going to be exposed, but it doesn't matter because you're going to be tying. You're going to be tying over that. I like to try to cross the thread over on the top so that it gets covered up later. But this is just going to keep the bead from sliding back and forth as you're tying. The bead's going to be locked into place by the other materials later. Then you wind back to the bend, And if you wanted a really heavy one, you could put some lead wire behind that bead or non-toxic wire. I find that the bead is just the perfect amount of weight for this fly. And I fish this usually on a floating line. So you're back to the back, and then you take your zonker strip and you find a nice, dense, straight piece of rabbit fur. This all looks pretty good because I've already steamed it. So I'm just going to cut one end of this. And you can, if you want, you can cut this in a little V if you want to get really fancy. Be careful you don't cut into the hair. Just come in here. If you want to cut it into a little V, you can. It doesn't really matter, but there's a little V cut in it. And then you want to cut the piece off. Well, just to make it easier to handle, you want to cut it about twice the hook shank, just to make it easier to handle. You could use the whole strip if you wanted to. And then you want to take that zonker strip, and you want to have, I don't know, just a little bit of it poking out, a little bit of the hide poking out the back. Not too much, but about that much. So it's about, maybe a third of a hook shank or less going beyond the bend. And then you wet that. And when you wet it, it makes it much easier to work with. Now I can find my tie-in place there. I'm going to kind of make sure that it's evened out. So now I've got that spot where half of the fibers go forward and half of them go rearward. So I got a nice spot to tie that in. And then I am just going to lash that to the top of the hook with about maybe a dozen good firm turns of thread. And make sure that it's, hide side down. And then you push that back. Get it out of the way. And you wind back up against it a little bit. And you take some of your pearl ice dubbing for the body. Some sort of white. If you want a white body, you could make the body any color you want. If this was a black one, I'd make the body black. And then you just dub this onto the hook. Not too much of a taper, a little bit of a taper. And I'm going to go beyond your field of view here. I'm just continuing this dubbing noodle. And yes, you could spin this on a loop if you want to. Ice dubbing handles really nicely, and it doesn't really need to be spun on a loop. You can see that goes on there really nicely. And then you just take a couple turns with that bare thread, and then make sure that you get that, first turn right up against that fur, and then start winding forward. I'm banging into my overhead light here. And you want to stop about a bead length from the bead. Yeah, that's good there. I'm going to stop about a bead length from the bead because now you're going to put in your red throat. So you take some of your red dubbing, whatever your choice is. I don't have a lot of red synthetic dubbing. I need to get some. I had to find this. This is old stuff called Flashaboo dubbing, and it's just it's just chopped up Flashabou. You could chop up some fine Flashabou to make this, but it's red and sparkly, so it makes a nice gill area on a baitfish imitation, and fairly thick. And then just wind this back and forth a couple times so that you get a little throat area there. And so, you know, fairly thick. And then I'm going to whip finish here, because now I'm going to have to cross the bead, and I don't really want to cross the bead at this stage of the game, because that thread's going to be exposed, and I don't want to catch that thread by mistake. And then restart my thread back in the eye, and cover that whole area so you got a little something to bear down on. And then you bring your zonker strip forward, and you figure out where it's going to lay, and you just pull back so that you don't bind down too much hair. And you can again wet it, and then you make sure that it's going nicely over the top, straight over the top, and make about 3 really tight turns over the bead. And then you come in and snip that piece of leather off, and then just thoroughly cover that head with thread. Put a lot of tension on here. And this is an almost indestructible fly. It really holds up to a lot of fish. And of course, once this dries, that tail will be nice and fluffy. It's still a little wet. And then whip finish. And if you got any hairs sticking out over the eye, if they bother you, trim them away. They don't bother me too much, but since I'm doing this for Facebook. And then there's an important final step, I think, on this fly to make sure that it stays durable. And that is to get some deep penetrating head cement, if I can open it. I just used that and already it's tight. And there's going to be 3 spots on this fly that you want to add your head cement. The first are those thread wraps that were at the back, because they're exposed. So you want to hit those with just a little drop of head cement to seal those off. And then right behind the bead, just put a little drop in there. And then, of course, the head itself. And now you've got a very durable fly. Quite easy to tie. Good looking fly, I think. You can really crank them out. And it being a weighted streamer, you're going to lose a lot of them. So don't be shy about tying yourself a bunch of them before you go fishing, because you're going to lose them. So do we have questions? And I'm going to change the battery on my other camera.
Mark's asking if it rides upside down in the water.
No, because that wing planes. That wing planes and keeps it upright. So no, it does not ride upside down. At least when I look at it, it doesn't.
And Richard's asking, how do you keep the tail from fouling?
If you don't make the tail too long, it won't foul. That leather strip keeps it. That leather strip will keep it out of the way. You could put a little stiffener on the bottom of the tail, maybe, but I don't find that they foul. I don't have any trouble with these flies. If you tie it the way I've tied it here, I have not had any trouble with it fouling.
And Brandon's asking if you would ever tie the throat with a red feather.
With a red heather?
Feather.
Sure, why not? I don't, but you could. Don't do what I do. But yeah, waiting for my camera to come on here. There we go. You could put a red feather in there. Absolutely. I think you just want to touch a red. You put red chenille, red dubbing, whatever. Red ostrich herl, for that matter. I think you just want a little touch of red at the throat to imitate the gills and maybe the minnow is bleeding, injured. So yeah, anything red. I think the wing is important. The body too, you could tie from lots of different things. And I think the bead, the tungsten bead, is important to get the weight. So the fly, because I fish this on a floating line a lot, so I do want some weight on this fly. You could tie it without the bead too if you wanted a really neutral, buoyant fly, or you're fishing this on a sinking line. You could leave the bead out. Leader setup for a fly like this. I fish this on a 9-foot 2X or 3X leader, period. Because I am using a floating line. I do want a longer leader because I want to be able to either fish the fly shallow by the angle at which I cast it in the current, or I can fish it deep by mending and letting the fly sink on its own. But you need a longer leader to do that with a floating line. But you have a lot of control with a floating line as to how you manipulate the streamer. So, and I fish it generally in fairly shallow water. So if I was going to fish it in 4 or 5 feet of water and raging current, I'd put it on a sinking line with a short 4 foot piece of 2X tied to my sink tip or to my poly leader. Yep. Any other questions?
Mark is asking why would you fish it on a floating line? Out of curiosity.
Well, because lately I've been fishing streams that are fairly shallow, and I usually, I've been kind of stuck in Vermont this year. Our streams aren't very big, so. But I like a floating line because there's a lot more control. I can control the way the fly drifts a lot better with a floating line. And it's easier casting, it's easier picking up. I'm not hanging up on the bottom so much. I can get that fly off the bottom. Sometimes with a sinking line, you're hanging up all the time and losing flies. And if I'm hanging up with a floating line, all I have to do is start stripping a little quicker, and I'll stay off the bottom, fish it a little faster. So but you definitely fish it. Definitely fish it on a sinking line if you want. No question about it. Fish it on an intermediate. Fish it on a 10-car route if you want. Be hard to cast, but you could. Do you use a swivel in the setup? No, Mark, I don't use a swivel in my setup. Nope, I don't. I guess you could if you wanted to. This fly does not twist very much in the current, so don't see the need for a swivel. Use a tippet ring if you, and the last part of your leader if you want.
Larry asked, could you dead drift this under an indicator like a wounded minnow?
Absolutely, you could. Yes, absolutely, you could dead drift it under an indicator or without an indicator with a floating line. Just watch your line. But yeah, it's a great fly for imitating a dead or dying minnow fish dead drift because it moves by itself. That zonker strip really moves, so you don't need to add much action to this fly to make it look alive. So yes, definitely would be great dead drift under an indicator. Yep. Good.
Would this work on Erie steelhead, Matt's asking?
Yes, it would. Well, it did for me, Matt. Last time I was there, it worked very well. In fact, it was, I think, the best fly on those Steelhead Alley steelhead or lake run rainbows, if you prefer to call them that. But yeah, because there are a lot of those emerald shiners in those Lake Erie streams. So yes, it's a great Lake Erie steelhead fly. Dead drifted in particular. Very good fly there. Yep. And I fished it both on an indicator and with a tight line rig, and it worked both ways. And then an egg fly hanging on there just as insurance.
All right. I don't see any more questions that have come through.
Okay.
Short and sweet today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's an easy fly. I'm certainly here to ask questions. The longer I sit here and answer your questions, the longer before I have to work out this afternoon. I'm not in any hurry. To leave. If anybody has any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Have you all listened to the podcast with Brittany Howard? That was a really fun podcast to do. It went live last Friday, and she was absolutely fantastic guest on the podcast, and she's a real good storyteller. So if you want to hear some good fishing stories, I'd listen to that podcast. What else do we have going on this week, Julia?
I just put a link to the Brittany Howard podcast in the comments. Craig, what else is going on? We've got...
Craig, you have my permission for a new H3. Tell your wife you absolutely need an H3. Your life won't be complete without an H3. So, yes, you can. You can quote me on that. You can quote me.
I don't know where this is, but John's asking what would be a good fly to use at Oak Orchard this weekend. Do you know where that is?
Yep, I do. I grew up not far from there. Yeah, I think it would be. It would definitely take those Lake Run Browns and Steelhead. Yep. And there's emerald shiners in Oak Orchard Creek too. So, yep. I think he was saying it would be a good fly to use at Oak Orchard. Yeah. Yep. And yeah. Anybody else need permission for buying a new H3 or even a recon, or a mission? I'll give you permission. Would you use this time of year on southern Michigan waters for chromers? Yeah, I would use it, but I just believe in this fly. I would use it because I have confidence in it. I don't think I've ever caught a Michigan steelhead on this particular pattern, but I would use it. I would try it anyway. Going to hit Cheeseman Canyon, Colorado tomorrow. Have you ever fished there? I have fished there. I need permission for new waders. Yes, Titus. You have my permission to get a pair of the Orvis Pro waders. They're absolutely the best waders I have ever worn. Every time I put them on, I thank Jim Kershaw, the product developer, for making a pair of waders that I cannot get to leak. And they're still comfortable. I have not been in 2 years I've worn these waders. I have never gotten that much use out of a pair of waders without at least a pinhole leak. And, I mean, you fish a lot, your waders are going to leak, right? You're eventually going to wear through them, or you're going to hit barbed wire. It's going to happen. Waders, it's not if they leak, it's when. But I'm still waiting for my pro waders to leak. So yeah, you have my permission.
Yeah,
but,
I'll second that. And to kind of bring this full circle from the first question around winter fishing, I feel like, I'd use my ultralights in the spring, and then these my pros in the fall and winter. And I do what Tom said. I do a layer of merino base layer, some wool sweats, and then the pros. And they're durable. You can slaw through anything, and they're amazing. I do love them.
Yep. So you get the thumbs up from Julie, and they are available in women's sizes as well. So.
Yeah,
I'll put a link
to the men's, but I'll put a link to the women's.
Yeah, put a link to the women's. Ed says, tell my wife I need a new 7-weight recon. Yeah, Ed, just send me your email, and I'll send her a personal message that you need a new 7-weight recon. No problem at all. I'd be happy to do that. Anybody else need permission?
We should do like a templated certificate.
Yeah. Ed needs the following. He must have them. Under the tree, Christmas morning, he must have them. Any reason why the chest pocket on the Pro Fleece hoodie is on the right side as it's covered by sling pack strap? No, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know either.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so, I know why. It's so that whatever you have in that pocket is protected thoroughly by the sling pack strap, so that there's no chance of it falling out. So that's why it's there. How's that? How's that for a punt?
And speaking of chest pockets, another thing that when you were sharing all the tips earlier about staying warm, I have a rechargeable hand warmer, like a Diplo rechargeable hand warmer that I keep in my pro hoodie, either my wader pocket or my chest or my like hand pockets in my jacket, and that makes a huge difference.
Does it work?
Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
I probably want to get another one so I can kind of balance it out, and I definitely want to take you up on the toe warmers, because that's always the worst part, is losing your toes.
You just reminded me, I bought some electric socks last year, and I don't know where they are, but I tried those out for duck hunting, and they worked pretty well. I got to try them out for fishing. They have little battery packs in them. I don't know. I don't know what the hell happened to those. I got to dig them out.
Mark's asking a good question. He's asking if there are any more technical speakers coming up, like any of our developers. I don't think we have anything on the books, but we certainly could put something on. He's saying like rods, waders, reels.
Yeah, Mark. Make some suggestions on what kind of products you think you'd like to hear about, and the product developers always like to come on and talk about things. So yeah, we can definitely do that.
Oh, and next week, Tom, we're going to do the walkthrough of the fly tying, like just kind of how to navigate a fly tying setup and everything. I'm trying to look at when that was. Maybe it's the week after. Okay, it's the 9th. You're doing a walkthrough with like the kit for your as a kind of like how to use a fly tying kit, or what all the different pieces are and stuff. So
do I have that on my? I don't think I have that on my calendar, but
you do. But it's a couple weeks away.
Oh, okay, yeah. We're going to talk about the Orvis basic kit and how you use a kit and what's in it, and walk you through it. So that should be fun. Greg Burke.
You said that Irma would like permission for a new pair of waders, and I'm telling you, Irma, get yourself some pro waders, girlfriend.
Roger, why does Irma not have a pair of pro waders? That could be considered.
Asking for an update on the rebirth of a superfine carbon line.
Yeah, well, Joseph, there are a number of models in the Recon line that are the same profile as the superfine carbons. We kind of rolled those lightweight line, lighter, shorter rods into the Recon line. So if you like the superfine carbon, those shorter 3 and 4 weight rods in the Recon line are going to be very, very similar model. So that's the way it stands for now.
This is a good question. Just asking, any advice in fishing streamers in the winter? I'm having trouble casting into the hole in the ice.
Oh.
Ice fishing.
Yeah, you're probably too close to the hole. Fly rods don't work that well when you have a short amount of line out. So you need to stand about 30 feet from the hole and then cast your fly right into the middle of the hole. It's good casting practice. And then with a long leader, you should strip some line off and kind of flip your rod up in the air so that leader creeps down into the hole. And when your fly gets to the bottom, then you strip it back up through the hole. Julia, we're being sarcastic. We're not serious here.
I didn't catch on to that, but thank you. I was very confused.
Todd Tanner, why did Orvis do away with zippers and waders? We have a pair of zippered waders coming out very shortly, Todd, in the pro models. I think it's March of 2021. It's pretty soon.
Yeah, I know I don't think we've released anything yet, but so y'all are the first to hear it. But I think they're coming very soon.
Yeah.
Hang tight.
For old guys like you, Tanner, that have to pee all the time, we got your waders. I know when you get to be your age and you have too much coffee, you need zippers in your waders. Of course, I don't need them, Todd, but Todd's an old friend of mine, guys, so that's why I'm teasing him. How about a podcast with Havard Stubo and Rolf Nylander about Scandinavian fly fishing and jazz? That's a good idea. I don't know if we can get Rolf on there. we can probably get Havard, but I don't know about Rolf. He's a little harder to pin down, but I'm going to put that on my list. Yeah, it'd be a good idea. It'd be fun too.
Yeah.
I will put that on my podcast list. Thank you. Let's see. I guess love to hear more about new fly tying gadgets. There's so many. There are, Mark. There are. There's a lot of gadgets. I have some new ones that I'm recommending to the merchants at Orvis. So hopefully you'll see them in the next year or so. We're not going to repeat Wilshire Fly Fisher's comment. I don't think we're going to repeat that one.
Oh no!
All right. So anyway,
that might be time to wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll give you a last look at that light bright zonker. Well, maybe I should give you the twirl, huh? Maybe I should give you.
Actually, okay. So we'll do this, and then Tom. Actually, I'm going to put since we're talking about gifts and everything, I'm going to put your gift guide link in the comments here.
Okay.
Check it out.
So here is the final twirl. All right. Okay, everybody. Well, I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. It really means a lot to us that you take the time out of your day to come and hang out, and hope some of you tied flies along with us. This is a pretty easy one to tie as you're watching, but try them out. It's a great pattern. And next week we are going to be tying. What are we going to be tying?
Next. We're going to be tying I have it right here. We're going to be tying the BeadHead Prince.
Oh, the BeadHead Prince. Yeah, an old standby. a pretty basic fly, but not the easiest fly in the world to tie. So maybe I can show you some ways of making this fly a little bit easier to tie. I'm going to tie it the standard way. I'm not going to take any shortcuts, but I may have some hints on how to put this fly together a little bit easier. So, BeadHead prints. Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
2 weeks from today, you're gonna have a standoff with Flagler again.
2 weeks from today, we're doing. Is it 2 weeks from today? Oh, yeah, and we're gonna be Tim and I are gonna be tying our own favorite versions of the rusty spinner, which is one of the most useful dry flies during a hatch that you can have. So Tim's gonna tie his way of doing it, and I'm gonna tie my way, and we'll post the materials beforehand, and we'll have some friendly competition. So thanks for tuning in. And have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope you're with some loved ones. I hope you are safe and stay away from large gatherings. We want to all get beyond this pandemic and wait till we have a vaccine. So play it safe and have a great Thanksgiving, and maybe have a Zoom call with your relatives. I'm going to do it with mine. All right, everyone. Thanks. And we'll see you next week.